Sienna looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Oh, the best gift you could give us, Evelyn, is to disappear." Her words stung like a slap. Yeah, she stood there in my son's kitchen, her wedding dress hanging behind her like a cruel joke, queuing, and Ryan, my only son, didn't even look at me. He just nodded, silent, cold. And 3 years ago, I sold the home my late husband and I built together. Every corner filled with laughter, every memory etched in love. I sold it so Ryan and Sienna could afford their dream house, $87,000, my entire life savings. Given without question, with the kind of love only a mother understands, they promised I'd always have a place there, that I'd always be part of their family. But now, the day before their wedding, the wedding I was paying for, Sienna decided I was the problem. "You Kang, you heard her, Mom," Ryan finally said. "This is supposed to be our special weekend. You're making it negative." Negative. I'd spent the morning arranging flowers, the afternoon helping with decorations, and the evening listening to Sienna complain about the color of napkins. Count. My only crime was suggesting that maybe we didn't need ice sculptures shaped like swans. "Qual?" I asked quietly. "Where exactly am I supposed to go?" Sienna shrugged. "A hotel? A friend's?" "I don't care. Just." "Not here." "Oh, this is my son's house too," I reminded her. Ryan cleared his throat and said softly, "Oh, actually, Sienna's been handling the finances. She's made the payments, the upgrades. You just gave us some money once. Some money once. $87,000 reduced to a sentence. And count. My years of sacrifice turned into background noise in their fairy tale." I looked around that kitchen. Those marble counters, those polished floors, every inch built with my money. And something inside me shifted, not broke, shifted. I smiled slightly. "You're right," I said. "I should go." They expected tears. They expected begging, but instead I turned away calm, quiet, done. They wanted me gone? Fine. But before I left, I'd remind them just how much of their perfect life belonged to me. Kent, they thought they were cutting me out. They had no idea I was about to cut the ground out from under them. I walked upstairs to the room they still called the guest room. Never mine. Never home. Just a reminder that guests eventually leave. As I folded my clothes, I heard laughter echoing from downstairs. Repossible never lit a perfume. Sienna's voice carried up like perfume, sweet, fake, and impossible to ignore. She was already planning to turn my room into her wellness studio. "And Ryan?" he agreed. Of course he did. They were already redecorating my space while I was still standing in it. And he ceased to tear. My eyes landed on a framed picture of my late husband Daniel sitting on the nightstand. 43 years of marriage, and not once did he make me feel unwanted. He built me a life of love and safety. Now his son was letting someone erase me from it. Yang. I picked up the photo and whispered, "Yo, don't worry, Daniel. I'm not walking away this time. I'm just getting smarter." When I stepped outside an hour later, suitcase in hand, the house looked different, colder. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a monument to how blind love can be. Okay? I sat in my car, staring at the front door, then pulled out my phone. If there was one person who always warned me about protecting myself, it was my lawyer, Margaret Liu. "King," she answered on the second ring. "Evelyn, what's wrong?" "Margaret, I need you to pull every document from the house purchase, all of it." She went quiet for a moment. "Has something happened with Ryan and Sienna?" "You could say that." And I told her everything. The words, the dismissal, the way they looked at me like I was nothing. Margaret listened without interrupting. I could hear her typing. Then she said quietly, "Oh, Evelyn, you might want to sit down." My chest tightened. Why? Because the $87,000 you gave them, it wasn't a gift. My breath caught. "Yes, war wu piercy SMPC. What are you talking about? Remember the paperwork I had you sign after Daniel passed?" I made sure the house funds were legally documented as a loan. You're listed as a company owner. 35%. I froze. 35%. They'd treated me like a guest in a house I legally owned. Through the window, I could still see them inside, lawing, drinking champagne, celebrating their perfect little world. Yo, Margaret, I said slowly, what happens if I decide to sell my share? They'd have the option to buy you out at market value, she explained. If they can't afford it. The house goes on sale, a slow calm spread through me. For the first time in years, I felt in control. Then prepare the notice, I said. Deliver it first thing Monday morning. They wanted me gone. Fine. I'd disappear, but I'd take 35% of their dream with me. They thought they were kicking me out. What they didn't know was I was about to put a for sale sign on their future. I drove away that night with the windows down, the wind washing over my anger. For the first time in years, I felt calm, not broken, not defeated, just clear. And I checked into a small hotel on the edge of town. Simple room, clean sheets, quiet enough for me to think. Yukang. As I sat on the bed, I replayed every word Sienna said. Every time Ryan stayed silent, it burned. But it also fueled me. I picked up my phone again and dialed another number. Sunrise Event Hall, the woman on the other end answered brightly, "This is Hannah. How may I help you?" "Hi, Hannah. This is Evelyn Carter. I'm calling about tomorrow's wedding reception." Her tone turned cheerful. "Oh yes, the Carter Hayes wedding, big day tomorrow. How can I assist you?" Yang. I took a breath and said calmly, I'd like to cancel it." There was a long pause. "Cancel? The wedding reception?" "Yes. The food, the staff, the decorations, everything, but ma'am, the event is fully prepped. The kitchen's already working on the meals. We're less than 24 hours away." "I understand," I said softly, "and I'm prepared to pay the cancellation fees. The thing is, I'm the one who signed the contract and paid the deposit, so I believe I have that right." More papers shuffled on her end. "Yes, the booking is under your name, but surely you'll want to discuss this with the couple?" I looked out the window toward the glowing skyline. No need," I said. "They made it very clear I'm not part of their family anymore, so I'm just honoring their wishes." I ended the call, switched my phone to silent, and smiled for the first time in months. Around midnight, the phone started ringing nonstop. Sienna's name flashed across the screen. Then Ryan's. I ignored them both. "Finally," I answered. "What did you do?" Sienna's voice exploded through the phone. "You canceled our wedding reception." "I didn't cancel your wedding," I said calmly. "You can still get married. I just canceled the party I was paying for." 200 people are expecting dinner tomorrow," she screamed. "Well," I said, "that does sound like a problem." Ryan grabbed the phone. "Mom, you can't do this. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I said quietly. "I'm simply keeping my money in the same place my respect used to be. With me." There was silence on the line, the kind that says they finally realized the tables had turned. I ended the call, set my phone down, and turned off the light. Tomorrow they'd wake up to the first day of their new life. The dusty wreath, a life without my money to hold it together. They wanted to cut me out of their story. I just erased the entire chapter they were counting on me to fund. They thought I was done fighting. They had no idea the battle had just begun. By morning, my phone was full of missed calls, desperate voicemails, and angry messages. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I ordered breakfast, turned on the morning news, and watched the world go on as if nothing had happened. At 9 o'clock, there was a knock on my hotel door. When I looked through the peephole, there he was. Ryan, he looked exhausted. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. When I opened the door, he didn't even try to hide his panic. "Mom, please. We need to talk." "Okay, I'm a for shy, I'm a spa. Shouldn't you be getting ready for your big day?" I asked. "It's ruined," he said. Sienna's locked herself in the bathroom, her mother's threatening to fly home, and I held up a hand. I'm sorry to hear that, Ryan, truly. But I didn't ruin your wedding, I just stopped paying for it. Yeah, he stepped inside, running his hands through his hair. This is insane. Over what? A misunderstanding? Sit down, I said. He froze for a moment, then obeyed. Maybe it was the tone in my voice. Arik, calm but commanding. The tone of the mother who'd once taught him right from wrong. This isn't about a misunderstanding, I said quietly. This is about respect, about gratitude, about the fact that I've spent years treating you like a man, while you've treated me like a bank. Hient sibu sporer ferber fervo ing mesabushin seeming. That's not fair, he muttered. Fair? I laughed softly. When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you asked how I'm doing, instead of how much I can give? He said nothing. His silence was the answer. Do you even know how much I've given you over the years? I asked. Beyond the house, beyond the wedding, he shrugged. A few thousand, maybe 37,000, I said sharply. $37,000 in emergencies, plus 87 for the house. That's $124,000, Ryan. 124,000, and you let that woman tell me to disappear. He shing. He buried his face in his hands. I was going to pay you back, he whispered. With what? I asked. You can't even pay your credit cards on time. His head snapped up. How do you know that? Because I've been paying them, I said, along with your car insurance and the groceries. And every short months, you and Sienna couldn't cover. I've been patching holes in a sinking ship, and you never even noticed the water. He was quiet for a long time, then finally he said, What do you want from me, Mom? I leaned forward. I want you to understand that love isn't free when it's taken for granted. I want you to see that kindness has a limit, and you've reached it. He looked broken. But I wasn't finished. You and Sienna wanted me to disappear, I said. So I will. But I'm taking my money. We Ford a Stormont, but I'm taking my money. And my share of the house. With me. And I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked to the door. As I turned the handle, I added, Oh, and Ryan, tell your fiancée she should probably start looking for a new place to live. They thought I'd given up. What I'd really done was take back everything they thought they owned. They called it betrayal. I called it balance. The next morning, I sat in the hotel cafe with a cup of coffee and the calmest heart I'd had in years. Outside, the world looked brighter, sharper, like I was finally seeing it without the fog of guilt and obligation. My phone buzzed again. This time, I answered. It was Margaret. Evelyn, she said. The documents are ready. Your ownership is crystal clear. 35% of that house is legally yours. Yeah? A slow smile spread across my face. Thank you, Margaret. Let's make sure they know it. Came by noon, the notice was delivered to the house, and by 2, my phone rang again. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. Hey, Mom, he started, his voice trembling. A courier dropped something off. It says you're selling the house? What is this? It's exactly what it says, Ryan, I replied. You and Sienna have 30 days to buy out my share. If not, it goes on the market. You can't do that. I can, I said firmly. And I am. There was silence. Then Sienna's voice cut in, shrill and panicked. You can't take our home. That's cruel. Our home? I repeated softly. You mean the one my money built? The one you told me to leave? Sweetheart, that's not cruelty. That's called ownership. I could almost hear her breaking on the other end. She sputtered something about calling her lawyer, about how this was unfair, but I'd stopped listening. Income. For the first time, her power meant nothing to me. That evening, I received another call, this time from Margaret again. You, Evelyn, she said, they're not going to take this quietly. Be prepared. Be prepared. I'm not afraid of noise anymore, I told her. Let them shout. I have paperwork. Later that night, as I was about to turn in, there was another knock at my hotel door. When I opened it, Ryan stood there again, this time with tears in his eyes. Mom, please, he said. Sienna's losing it. Her parents are furious. We can't afford to buy you out. Please don't sell the house, Ryan, I said gently. This isn't about the house anymore. This is about accountability. You made choices. Now you live with them, but we'll have nowhere to go, he whispered. I looked at him. The same boy I once rocked to sleep, now a man who'd forgotten what respect meant. You'll find a way, I said softly. You always do when no one's there to save you. As he walked away, I felt something inside me finally unclench. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was justice, the kind that doesn't scream but settles in quietly like peace after a storm. They'd spent years taking from me now. I was just collecting what was mine. They wanted me to disappear. But soon, they realized I was the one thing in their story they couldn't erase. 2 days later, I woke to a call from an unknown number, Mrs. Carter, this is Detective Rodriguez with the Virginia Beach Police Department, the voice said politely. We received a report suggesting possible financial elder abuse. We'd like to conduct a welfare check. For a moment, I didn't speak. Then it hit me, Ryan and Sienna. Those two actually called the police. On me, detective, I said calmly. I can assure you I'm perfectly fine. In fact, I've never been clearer in my life. He hesitated. Still, ma'am, we'll need to follow up in person, of course, I said. Tomorrow morning works for me. Yuki, when the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at my reflection in the hotel mirror. They'd spent years draining me dry, and now that I'd taken back control, they were trying to paint me as unstable. But that was fine. They wanted to play dirty? I could play smarter. You care. The next morning, I arrived at the police station with a folder full of documents, every bank transfer, every receipt, every proof of the money I'd given them. Detective Rodriguez was younger than I expected, with patient eyes and a calm voice. Mrs. Carter, he said, we just need to confirm a few details. Details. The report claimed your family might be exploiting you financially. I smiled faintly. Detective, I think you'll find the situation is quite the opposite. I spread the papers across his desk. For 3 years, I've given my son and his wife $124,000. You'll see every transaction right here. He studied the evidence, his expression tightening as he turned each page. Hey, this is substantial, he said. It is, I replied. And now that I've finally drawn boundaries, they've decided I must be losing my mind. He leaned back, nodding slowly. Mrs. Carter, I can assure you, you seem perfectly capable of handling your affairs. Yet I am. Yet I am, I said. And I'm finally done letting anyone else handle them for me. 20 minutes later, the meeting was over. He closed the file and said quietly, I'll be closing this case as unfounded. As I walked out of that station, sunlight spilled through the glass doors like freedom. I wasn't a victim. I was a woman reclaiming her power. One signature, one document, one decision at a time. My phone rang again. Ryan. I answered. Mom, he said, his voice shaking. The police called. They said they're not pursuing it. That's right, I said calmly. Because I'm not the one being taken advantage of. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, the detective now knows exactly who's been financially abusing who. And trust me, Ryan, he wasn't impressed, he didn't respond, he just breathed heavily on the line. For once, he had no defense. They thought they could shame me into silence. Instead, they gave me proof of just how afraid they were of my strength. And this time, I wasn't backing down. The next day, I called Ryan and told him to meet me at Margaret's office. If you want to discuss the house, I said, we'll do it properly. With lawyers present, he agreed. Of course he did. He had no choice left. When I arrived, Margaret was already waiting calm and composed behind her mahogany desk. Ryan and Sienna came in 15 minutes late. They looked like they hadn't slept in days. Sienna's makeup couldn't hide her puffy eyes, and Ryan's suit hung loose, wrinkled. Sienna spoke first, her voice trembling but still carrying that familiar entitlement. Evelyn, I owe you an apology. I was stressed. I things I didn't mean, Burrs Morris Trom. I was stressed. I said things I didn't mean. Thank you, I said, cutting her off. That's a start. Margaret spread the documents on the table. Let's review the facts, she said. Evelyn provided $87,000 toward the down payment. The mortgage lists her as company borrower. The deed shows her as 35% company owner. Ryan stared at the papers like they were written in another language. We didn't know, he muttered. We thought it was a gift. Margaret adjusted her glasses. If you had read the documents I sent 3 years ago, you'd have known. Sienna never returned the signed copies. Oh, Sienna swallowed hard. I was busy with wedding planning for 3 years, Margaret said dryly. I leaned forward. Let's not pretend this was an accident. You were happy to accept my money when it suited you. But now that I want it back, suddenly I'm the villain. Sienna's composure cracked. We can't afford to buy you out, Evelyn. You'll destroy our lives. I met her eyes, calm but unflinching. No, Sienna, I'm not destroying your lives. I'm just forcing you to live the kind of life you can actually afford. Ryan buried his face in his hands. Mom, there has to be another way. Can't we make payments? At what interest rate? I asked, and with what guarantee? You've ignored every financial promise you've ever made. Sienna's voice broke. You're being cruel. No, I said softly. Cruel was telling the woman who built your future to disappear. This is accountability. Margaret spoke again. Kopic, Evelyn has 2 options on the table. You can buy her out for her full share, or the house will be sold and the proceeds divided. Ryan looked defeated. How long do we have? 30 days, I said. That should give you enough time to decide whether pride is worth more than stability. As they gathered their things, Sienna stopped by the door, her voice small. Evelyn, we're family. Doesn't that count for something? I looked at her hand gripping the doorframe, trembling. Yes, I said quietly. That's exactly why this hurts so much. They walked out without another word. Ergal, for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt peace. They had spent years teaching me how to give. It was my turn. Now it was my turn to teach them what it means to lose. 2 weeks into their 30-day deadline, there was a knock at my hotel door. When I opened it, I didn't see Ryan or Sienna. It was her mother, Barbara Hayes, elegant, calm, the kind of woman who'd been managing social disasters for most of her life. Singbar Sobel furs, I pre-purisa. I hope you don't mind me stopping by, she said. I got your address from Margaret. I stepped aside. Please come in. She sat down with a sigh and placed a bottle of wine on the table between us. Frisula per mar, I came to check on the kids, she said. And to talk to you. I poured us each a glass, and they're a mess, trunidus jumsinquity for. I poured us each a glass and waited. They're a mess, she admitted. Ryan's working extra shifts. Sienna's been crying every day. They're terrified of losing the house. I nodded slowly. Actions have consequences. Barbara studied me for a moment, then said softly, You were right to do what you did. I raised an eyebrow. Excuse me, I've been watching my daughter for years, she continued. The entitlement, the lack of gratitude. I thought marriage might humble her. Instead, it made her worse. She's never had to face the fallout of her own behavior. Until now. She took a sip of wine, her voice steady. When Sienna called me begging for money to buy out your share, I told her no. I said if she wanted a house, she needed to start treating the company owner with respect. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at this woman who had spent years enabling the same girl who destroyed my peace, and now she finally saw it too. Barbara reached into her purse and pulled out a check. She begged me to give you this. $25,000. A down payment. I tore it up. I looked at her surprised. Why? Kang, because it wasn't my debt to pay, she said firmly. Borders Serenastursum, and she'll never learn if people keep saving her. We sat in silence for a while, two mothers, two women who had both loved their children too much to let them fall. Until now. Okay. I used to think protecting them meant cushioning every mistake, Barbara said, but maybe love isn't about saving them. Maybe it's about finally letting them stand on their own. Her words lingered long after she left. That night, I sat alone by the window, staring at the city lights. And for years, I'd been angry at Sienna for her greed, her arrogance. But now I realized something. I had been part of the problem too. Every time I'd written a check, I'd been teaching them that I would always be there to fix things, that no matter how they treated me, I'd come back with open hands. Not anymore. This time, I wasn't the safety net. I was the lesson. They wanted freedom from me. Soon, they'd learn what real freedom costs. 6 months passed. The storm had finally quieted. I'd sold my share of the house and moved into a cozy two-bedroom apartment in a senior community with a garden view. The mornings were peaceful. The air smelled like fresh coffee and jasmine. For the first time in years, my life was mine. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was Sienna. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it. Then I answered. Her voice was different, soft, careful. Yan, Evelyn, she said, I wanted you to know. I got promoted. Promoted? Yes, she said with a small laugh. I started working at a dental office as a receptionist. Yesterday, they made me office manager. I smiled to myself. That's wonderful, Sienna. I'm exhausted, she said, laughing again, but proud. For the first time, I'm actually earning something that's mine. I could hear the truth in her tone. She wasn't the same woman who once demanded swan ice sculptures and diamond napkin rings. Cat. This voice belonged to someone who'd finally learned the value of effort. Cat. There was a long pause before she spoke again. Evelyn, I owe you a real apology. I was awful to you. I treated you like a bank, not like a person. You didn't deserve that. I swallowed hard. Apologies aren't always easy to hear when they come too late. But hers sounded genuine. I appreciate that, Sienna, I said quietly. She hesitated. Would you? Maybe like to come to dinner sometime? Nothing fancy. Just homemade spaghetti and real conversation. I smiled. Let's start with lunch in public. Baby steps. She laughed softly. Whatever you're comfortable with. After we hung up, I sat there for a long moment, staring out at the sunset. Maybe people can change. Maybe sometimes you have to let the cracks form before the light gets in. My phone buzzed again. A text from Barbara heard about Sienna's promotion. Thank you for not bailing her out. Yay. I typed back. Thank you for not teaching her to avoid the fall. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is let them face the storm they created. That's what love had taught me. That's what strength had demanded. For years, I gave and gave until I forgot who I was. Now, I was finally living for me. Discovering who Evelyn Carter really was when no one was taking pieces of her to survive. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky gold. Tomorrow, I had lunch with friends, a book club meeting in the evening, and maybe, just maybe, a date with a man who made me laugh like I hadn't in years. I wasn't the same woman they'd thrown out of that house. I was stronger, wiser, free. They wanted me to disappear, and I did. Right into a life they could never take from me again.